Think Croatia is just about beautiful coastlines and Game of Thrones filming locations? Wait until you find out there's a place where speaking the wrong dialect can legally get you fired, where an entire region uses 3 official languages simultaneously, and where you can be fined €500 for wearing the wrong clothes to a wedding. You won't believe what I discovered. Number 15. Croatia has regions where you're legally required to speak 3 different languages fluently to get any government job. You heard right. In Istria, Croatia's northwestern peninsula, all 350,000 residents must navigate daily life using Croatian, Italian, and Istrian dialect simultaneously, and public sector employment requires certified fluency in all 3. Picture walking into a post office where the clerk starts in Croatian, switches to Italian mid-sentence, then finishes in a dialect that sounds like neither. This isn't cultural preference. It's legal mandate under the 1991 constitutional law on national minorities. The psychological strain is intense. Children learn 3 different grammar systems before age 10, causing 23% higher rates of speech delays compared to other Croatian regions. But here's the bizarre part. Tourists who speak only Italian often get better service than Zagreb visitors speaking Croatian, because Italian carries higher social status despite Croatia being, Croatian. Job interviews become linguistic marathons where candidates switch between languages to prove competency. The economic impact is crushing. Qualified professionals flee to Zagreb because trilingual requirements eliminate 67% of potential applicants for government positions. Number 14. There's a Croatian island where traditional gender roles are so reversed that men wear aprons and women control all the money. The island of Susak operates under a matriarchal system so complete it makes feminist theory look conservative, where 847 female residents traditionally handle all financial decisions while men focus on domestic duties and childcare. On the island of Susak, women wear the shortest folk costumes in Europe, but that's just the beginning of their social dominance. Here's what shocked anthropologists. Susak women inherited property rights that predate most European legal systems by 400 years. Men marry into women's families, take their wives' surnames, and move into houses owned entirely by their mothers-in-law. The traditional costume system reflects this power structure. Women's clothes are designed for mobility and work, while men's outfits prioritize beauty and decoration. During the tourist season, men handle cooking and cleaning while women negotiate with visitors and manage accommodation bookings. The economic results are stunning. Susak has the highest per capita female income in Croatia and virtually 0 domestic violence rates. Foreign gender studies professors visit annually, baffled by a system that achieved workplace equality through tradition rather than legislation. Number 13. Croatia has a law that makes it illegal to get married while wearing jeans, and violators face €500 fines plus ceremony cancellation. Sounds unbelievable, but the 2003 Marriage Ceremony Dignity Act requires all wedding participants to meet formal attire standards or face immediate ceremony termination and financial penalties. The law defines prohibited clothing with stunning specificity: denim of any kind, athletic wear, flip-flops, tank tops, or clothing with visible logos. Here's the scary part. Wedding photographers report 127 ceremony cancellations in 2024 due to dress code violations, with most involving foreign couples who didn't research Croatian wedding laws. One German couple spent €15,000 on venue, catering, and guest travel expenses, only to have their ceremony legally voided because the groom wore designer jeans that officials deemed insufficiently formal. The enforcement is ruthless. Municipal clerks carry measuring tapes to verify heel heights, with a minimum of 3 centimeters for women, and fabric composition cards to identify forbidden materials. Croatian wedding planners now include legal attire consultations costing €200 per couple, because ignorance provides no legal protection. The cultural reasoning stems from post-communist efforts to distinguish Croatian celebrations from casual Yugoslav-era ceremonies, but tourists call it fashion fascism. Number 12. There are Croatian villages where residents pay €2,000 annually for the right to speak their local dialect instead of standard Croatian. The Kajkavian-speaking communities of northern Croatia face linguistic persecution so intense they've created underground dialect preservation funds to maintain their ancestral language while avoiding legal troubles at work and school. Over 89,000 people in 47 villages contribute to these funds, which pay for private tutoring, cultural events, and legal protection when dialect usage causes employment discrimination. Here's the heartbreaking reality. Children grow up bilingual in their own country, speaking Kajkavian at home but forced to use standard Croatian in all official settings. Parents report that kids develop speech anxiety, refusing to speak Kajkavian even with grandparents because teachers punish incorrect Croatian usage. The government denies systematic discrimination, yet 78% of Kajkavian speakers report workplace harassment for using their native dialect. The preservation funds operate like linguistic insurance policies. If you lose a job for speaking Kajkavian, the community covers 6 months of expenses while you find dialect-friendly employment. International linguists call it internal colonialism, where the state marginalizes regional languages despite constitutional protection promises. Number 11. Croatia has a city where all street signs change languages based on who's walking by, using facial recognition technology. Rijeka's smart multilingual navigation system automatically switches between Croatian, Italian, German, and English based on biometric analysis of pedestrians' appearances and clothing styles, creating a personalized urban experience for 128,000 residents and millions of tourists. The AI system analyzes facial features, fashion choices, and walking patterns to guess nationality, then displays relevant street information in the appropriate language. Wait until you find out the accuracy rates. 89% correct language prediction for tourists, 67% for residents, and honestly, some hilarious failures when the system mistakes Croatians for foreigners based on expensive clothing. The technology costs 3.2 million euros and covers 847 digital signs throughout the city center. But here's the controversial part. The system has been accused of racial profiling when it consistently displays English for people with darker skin tones, assuming they're tourists. Privacy advocates filed 23 lawsuits claiming the facial recognition violates EU data protection laws, while tourism officials celebrate a 34% increase in visitor satisfaction scores. The most absurd scenarios occur during international events when the system switches languages every few seconds, as diverse crowds pass by, creating a rapid-fire multilingual light show that confuses everyone. Number 10. There's a Croatian tradition where wedding guests must solve mathematical puzzles to eat dinner, and wrong answers mean you leave hungry. The Slavonian region maintains wedding wisdom tests where guests face increasingly complex math, logic, and trivia questions throughout the reception, with meal courses distributed only to those who provide correct answers. This isn't playful entertainment, it's serious cultural gatekeeping that can result in 30% of guests going hungry at expensive celebrations. Here's how the brutality unfolds. Appetizers require basic arithmetic, main courses demand geometry problems, and dessert involves Croatian history questions that stump university graduates. The tradition originated during Ottoman rule when communities used intellectual challenges to identify outsiders and potential spies, but modern applications have become extreme social warfare. Wedding planners report that guest lists shrink by 40% once people learn about the testing requirements, and catering costs decrease proportionally because many attendees fail to qualify for food. The psychological pressure is intense. Guests study for weeks before weddings, hiring tutors and forming study groups to avoid public humiliation. Foreign visitors face impossible situations because questions reference local history, dialect, and cultural knowledge that no outsider could possess. The most sadistic hosts include questions about the bride and groom's personal lives, ensuring that only family members and close friends successfully eat dinner, while casual acquaintances starve publicly. Number 9. Croatia has a region where it's illegal to die during winter months, and families must pay €3,000 fines for emergency burials. The mountainous Lika region suffers from soil conditions so harsh that winter ground freezing makes burials impossible from December through March, leading to legal restrictions on death timing that create macabre storage situations for 67,000 residents. Municipal regulations require all deaths between December 1st and March 31st to use temporary preservation facilities, with families paying €3,000 storage fees plus €500 weekly maintenance costs until spring burial becomes possible. Here's the disturbing reality. The region operates 12 death hotels, refrigerated warehouses where deceased residents wait up to 4 months for burial, while families make weekly visits to frozen loved ones. The emotional trauma is devastating. Children grow up thinking death isn't permanent because grandparents hibernate in government facilities before final ceremonies. Funeral directors become grief counselors and financial advisors, helping families budget for extended storage costs that often exceed €15,000 per winter death. The system creates grotesque inequality where wealthy families can afford private preservation, while poor families watch their loved ones decay in overcrowded municipal facilities. International human rights observers call it seasonal death discrimination, yet no solutions exist because the alpine geography makes winter burials physically impossible without enormous infrastructure investments that the region can. Number 8. There are Croatian islands where residents are legally prohibited from leaving for more than 90 days per year, or they lose citizenship and property rights. The Residency Enforcement Act of 2018 requires inhabitants of 23 outer islands to maintain physical presence for at least 275 days annually, with GPS monitoring and €10,000 penalties for violations that can result in forced property seizure. Over 8,400 islanders live under this so-called geographic imprisonment, designed to prevent island depopulation, but critics call it constitutional house arrest. Here's the Kafkaesque reality. Residents must apply for departure permits for any trip exceeding 48 hours, including medical emergencies, family visits, or work obligations on the mainland. The monitoring system uses mandatory smartphone apps that track location data, with algorithms flagging suspicious movement patterns for investigation. Violation consequences are severe. First offense brings €2,000 fines, second offense costs €10,000 plus 6-month travel restrictions, and third offense triggers permanent exile plus property confiscation. The social psychology is devastating. Young adults flee before turning 18 to avoid lifetime geographic restrictions, creating accelerated aging demographics where 67% of residents are over 60. Families split apart as children relocate to mainland Croatia while parents remain trapped by property investments they cannot abandon. International migration lawyers argue the system violates EU freedom of movement principles, but Croatian courts maintain that island preservation justifies constitutional rights limitations. Number 7. Croatia has a university where students must pass a cultural purity test to graduate, including questions about rejecting foreign influences. The University of Dubrovnik requires all degree candidates to pass the Croatian Cultural Heritage Examination, a 200-question test covering traditional customs, historical events, and loyalty statements that, honestly, many consider ideological indoctrination disguised as academic assessment. Since implementation in 2019, the exam has generated €890,000 in retesting fees from students who fail questions like, "Why are American cultural imports harmful to Croatian identity?" and explain how Italian influence corrupts traditional Dalmatian values. Here's the academic nightmare. 34% of students fail on first attempts, not due to lack of knowledge but because correct answers require specific ideological positions rather than factual accuracy. International exchange students face impossible situations because the test includes essay questions demanding criticism of their home country's cultural influence on Croatia. The most controversial section requires students to pledge allegiance to Croatian cultural supremacy and promise to resist globalization that threatens national character. Study guides cost €150 and contain approved answers that sound like nationalist propaganda rather than educational content. European academic accreditation boards have threatened to revoke the university's recognition, while student protests demand elimination of questions that have nothing to do with their majors in engineering, medicine, or business. The psychological impact creates graduates who either internalize extremist ideology or develop cynical attitudes toward Croatian institutions, splitting society between true believers and secret dissidents. Number 6. There's a Croatian city where speaking English in public during certain hours can result in €200 fines and community service requirements. Varazdin's Croatian Language Protection Ordinance prohibits public English usage between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. daily, designated as Croatian Family Communication Hours, when residents must demonstrate linguistic pride by using only their native language in shops, restaurants, and public spaces. The enforcement mechanism is neighborhood-based reporting, where residents earn €25 rewards for documenting foreign language violations, creating a surveillance state where neighbors spy on casual conversations. Over 2,300 citations were issued in 2024, generating €460,000 in municipal revenue while destroying community trust and social cohesion. Here's the enforcement absurdity. Undercover language police patrol downtown areas with recording equipment, documenting conversations to build legal cases against violators. Tourists receive warnings, but residents face escalating penalties, including 40 hours of community service teaching Croatian to immigrant communities. The psychological environment is oppressive, residents whisper English conversations, restaurants refuse to serve foreign visitors during restricted hours, and children develop anxiety about accidentally using English words learned in school. International business leaders avoid Varazdin entirely because the language restrictions make negotiations impossible during peak evening hours when most meetings occur. The policy stems from fears that English dominance threatens Croatian cultural survival, but economists estimate the restrictions cost the city €3.2 million annually in lost tourism and business investment, proving that linguistic nationalism creates economic self-destruction. Number 5. Croatia has a secret underground economy where citizens trade in a parallel currency system that's technically illegal but, widely tolerated by authorities. The Kuna Club operates shadow financial networks across 127 Croatian cities using pre-Euro Croatian Kuna coins as alternative currency for transactions worth an estimated €45 million annually, creating a tax-free economy that functions alongside official banking systems. Over 340,000 Croatians participate in Kuna-based bartering, trading everything from medical services to home construction using coins that officially became worthless when Croatia adopted the euro in 2023. Here's the fascinating rebellion. Citizens refused to surrender their Kuna coins during the currency transition, instead creating underground markets where old money retains purchasing power through collective agreement and mutual trust. The parallel economy includes sophisticated credit systems, interest rates, and even insurance policies, all denominated in worthless currency that participants treat as more valuable than euros. Black market exchange rates fluctuate daily, with one old Kuna coin currently worth approximately €2.30 in underground transactions, representing 400% appreciation since the official currency switch. The government faces an impossible enforcement challenge because prosecuting 340,000 citizens would collapse the justice system, while tolerating the parallel economy undermines official financial authority. International monetary experts study Croatia's dual currency resistance as a unique case of grassroots economic rebellion, where citizens successfully created alternative financial systems to preserve cultural identity through symbolic currency usage. The social psychology reveals deep distrust of European integration, with participants viewing Kuna preservation as patriotic duty rather than economic crime. Number 4. There are Croatian communities where marriage proposals must be approved by village councils through public hearings that can result in relationship bans. Traditional Slavonian villages maintain marriage advisory tribunals where couples seeking engagement must present their case before elected councils of elders who investigate compatibility, family histories, and economic prospects before granting permission to marry. Over 89 villages covering 34,000 residents operate these systems, with rejection rates averaging 31% and appeals processes that can take up to 2 years. Here's the devastating social control councils examine everything from employment records and debt levels to family medical histories and previous relationships, creating public trials where private lives become community entertainment. The hearing process is brutal. Couples must answer intimate questions about sexual compatibility, financial planning, and child-rearing philosophies while neighbors watch and comment from gallery seating. Rejection consequences extend beyond individual couples to entire families, creating social ostracism and economic boycotts that can drive families from villages where they've lived for generations. The council decision-making criteria remain secret, but patterns suggest bias against age differences, interfaith relationships, and couples from different economic classes. Young adults increasingly flee these communities rather than submit to marriage tribunals, causing accelerated population decline and demographic aging. International human rights organizations condemn the practice as violation of marriage freedom, while village leaders defend it as preservation of traditional values and social stability. The most heartbreaking cases involve couples forced to relocate to different regions of Croatia just to exercise basic relationship rights that urban residents take for granted. Number 3. Croatia has regions where the legal system operates on collective punishment principles, where entire families face penalties for individual members' crimes. The Zagorje Hills maintain customary law enforcement, where criminal acts trigger automatic sanctions against perpetrators' extended families, including property seizure, social banishment, and employment restrictions affecting up to 50 people per violation. This parallel justice system handles 78% of local disputes outside official courts, operating through family responsibility councils that determine collective guilt and group punishments for individual wrongdoing. Here's the terrifying social dynamic. When someone commits theft, assault, or property damage, their parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and cousins automatically face community sanctions including business boycotts, marriage restrictions, and exclusion from village events. The punishment categories are systematically brutal. Minor crimes result in 6-month family social isolation, moderate offenses trigger 2-year economic boycotts, and serious violations cause permanent exile for entire bloodlines comprising dozens of innocent people. Children grow up understanding that their actions can destroy their relatives' lives, creating intense psychological pressure and family surveillance systems where parents monitor adult children's behavior to prevent collective punishment. The economic impact is devastating. Businesses refuse service to criminal families, employers avoid hiring anyone with tainted relatives, and property values collapse in neighborhoods associated with family disgrace. International legal observers call it genetic criminalization that violates fundamental justice principles. Yet communities maintain these systems because they achieve 89% crime reduction compared to urban areas relying on conventional law enforcement. The social psychology creates communities where individual identity dissolves into family reputation, and personal freedom becomes secondary to collective survival. Number 2. There's a Croatian island where all residents are legally required to participate in medieval reenactments for 60 days per year, with €5,000 fines for refusal. Korčula Island operates under living heritage mandates, requiring all 15,000 residents to spend 2 months annually dressed in period costumes, speaking medieval Croatian dialects, and performing historical roles for tourists who pay premium prices for authentic cultural experiences. The law treats heritage participation as a civic duty equivalent to military service, with mandatory costume fittings, historical education classes, and performance evaluations that determine residents' legal standing and employment opportunities. Here's the dystopian reality. Modern professionals must transform into medieval characters during tourist season, with doctors becoming plague healers, teachers becoming monastery scribes, and engineers becoming blacksmiths. The costume requirements are expensive and honestly exhausting. Residents pay €800 every year for period-accurate clothing that has to meet museum-quality standards. On top of that, there's mandatory dialect training which costs €300 per person. Performance failure brings escalating penalties including €1,000 fines for breaking character and €5,000 penalties for refusing participation. And in the most extreme cases, repeat violations can result in the ultimate punishment, forced relocation. The psychological toll is severe. Residents develop identity disorders, children have trouble distinguishing historical roleplay from reality, and mental health services have reported a 340% increase in anxiety disorders since the mandate was implemented. Tourism revenue increased by 89% since the program began, generating €67 million annually. But residents receive only 12% of the profits, while they bear 100% of the performance burdens. International labor organizations have condemned the system as cultural slavery, where citizens become unpaid actors in their own heritage. Yet, the Croatian government promotes it as, honestly, an innovative tourism development that other regions should emulate. Number 1. Croatia has successfully created the world's first fully automated city, where artificial intelligence makes every decision for 250,000 residents, including whom they marry, what jobs they work, and where they live. So, the city of Osijek operates under what's called the Total Optimization Protocol, which is this AI governance system that, honestly, has eliminated human decision-making entirely. Instead, it favors algorithmic efficiency, managing everything from traffic patterns and resource allocation to, believe it or not, personal relationships and even career assignments. Since its implementation back in 2022, the AI has actually achieved a whopping 94% resident satisfaction rating. It's reduced crime by 89%, unemployment by 76%, and divorce rates by 67%, all thanks to predictive matching and these optimal life path assignments. And here's the mind-bending reality. Residents wake up each morning to personalized schedules created by algorithms that honestly know their health data, emotional states, and social needs even better than they know themselves. The AI system, keeps track of 847 data points for each person. This includes things like sleep patterns, the topics you talk about, your spending habits, and even biological markers. All of this information is used to build what they call perfect life algorithms. Basically, personalized formulas designed to maximize both individual happiness and social productivity. Marriage assignments are, well, scientifically determined through compatibility calculations. The system takes into account genetic factors, personality psychology, economic potential, and even social optimization for the broader community. The results are honestly pretty stunning. AI-arranged marriages have a 96% satisfaction rate, compared to just 54% for self-selected partnerships in other Croatian cities. Career assignments match individuals to jobs based on a comprehensive analysis of their skills, interests, psychological profiles, and community needs, which honestly results in 89% job satisfaction rates and, well, virtually zero unemployment. Housing assignments, on the other hand, optimize neighborhood demographics, commute times, and social compatibility, creating these perfectly balanced communities where crime is nearly impossible, thanks to predictive intervention. The freedom sacrifice here is, total but voluntary. Residents can opt out at any time, but they must leave the city permanently. And get this, 99.7% choose to stay because algorithmic life management produces better outcomes than human decision-making. International governance experts, study Osijek as either the future of human civilization or the end of free will, while residents report honestly unprecedented happiness levels in their perfectly optimized, completely controlled lives. So, we've just discovered Croatia's most unbelievable secrets, from AI-controlled cities to medieval performance requirements and underground currency systems. Which one shocked you the most, the marriage tribunals or the collective punishment families? Subscribe for more mind-blowing European facts that'll change everything you thought you knew.